Hey everyone, welcome back. It's time for the latest GoSkills Challenge solution. How did you do? Well, we're about to find out. Our Excel expert Claudia Buckley has her solution to share. Give it a look and see if yours matches up.
Hey everyone, let's jump right in. We've covered drop-down lists in lots of our previous videos, so you should be experts at that by now. Just go to the cell where you want the drop-down list to appear, click on your Data tab on the Excel ribbon, and click the Data Validation command. We need to allow a list, and we can use these values right here as our source. And click OK. Now they show up as options in our city list, so we can pick one. Well, we can repeat that same process for the day of the week list. But there's a problem. If we insert a column here for Sunday, or even if we add one to the end for Saturday, then our table size expands, but our drop-down lists options don't. And unfortunately, data validation doesn't accept table references as a source. So we can't just put the table name and headers as our list source. Sorry, that's just the way it is. But you can future-proof your drop-down list in a couple of ways. You can either use the indirect function, which we've shown you a couple of times in previous challenges, or you can use a named range. It's up to you. Here's how to use the named range method. So let me escape and remove that extra column that we created. And let's create that named range. We need to go to Formulas, Define Name, and in the Name section, enter a name that you want to call this list. So let's make it Forecast Headers. And we'll say that it refers to all the headers right here. It doesn't matter that the first one isn't a day of the week. You'll see why in a bit. Notice that Excel creates the structured reference because we're using a table. So we hit OK. And we have our named range here, Forecast Headers. Great. Now I'm going to teach you a little hack to make sure that we can add a column without breaking the formula. I'm going to use the offset function to set up my day of the week drop-down list and to make sure that all the column headers show up except for the first one. So even if I add or remove columns, the drop-down list menu will reflect what's on the table. I'll show you how it works in a random cell. So we start with the offset function name, and we need a reference. We want to reference the named range that we just created, and we'll tell Excel how many rows up or down from the reference point to move with the second argument. It's 0 because we want to keep it in the same row. For the columns argument, we want to move one column to the right. So here's our reference area. It starts at A1. But since we don't want to include the value that's in A1, we want to move one column to the right. So we need the number 1 here. And it's going to be one row in height, so we'll put the number 1. And for the width, that's the number of columns, that'll be a calculation. We want to count the number of non-empty cells within the range. So that's going to be the range Forecast Headers. Close parentheses here, but we want to subtract 1 because there are 6 columns in this range, but we only need 5, so we take the first one out. And close parentheses on the offset function. And this is what we'll see. That way, when we add that column, see, it shows up here. So this is the formula we want. We'll copy it now, and we'll use that formula instead for our data validation to create a drop-down list. So that's going to be the source. Here's our new formula, and we click OK. It has column 1 here because that's showing up on the table. Now if I delete column 1, it goes away. Perfect. Looks good. So now we can select a day of the week. All right, for the next part, how do we perform this two-way lookup? Here's my way, by using index and match. So let's start with the index function. We need to choose the array. That's going to be the entire table. And Excel creates a structured reference for that. It gives us the name of the table and hash all within square brackets. The next argument is the row number. So we want to know which row to select based on the city. Since this will change depending on what city is selected, we'll need to use the match function to find the city that matches the selection in cell B11. So let's use the match function. We'll want to match the value in B11 to a value here. That's going to be the array where we expect to find it. And for the match function, we need to enter a match type because the default is an approximate match. If you're on Excel 365, then you can use Xmatch because the default is an exact match. So since we're using the match function, let's enter 0, close parentheses on the match function, and that result will supply the row number that the index function will use. So now we need to move on to the next argument in the index function, which is the column number. We basically need to do the same thing. So we need match, and the lookup value will be whatever is selected in B12, and we need a lookup array. Well, we did create a named range, so we could have just used the name range that we created, but it's really the same values that's here in forecast headers. And we need that exact match parameter. So close parentheses on the match function and for the index function. So this is telling us that London on Thursday will be 22, and that's correct. And finally, we need the result for the Outlook field. We want to look at the numeric value in this cell and determine where it falls in the range of numbers in this table and return the outlook associated with that range. That's conditional behavior, which can be accomplished with the if function. Now, the problem with the if function is that on its own, you're limited to 2 possible outcomes. If the result is one thing, do X, and if not, do Y. Well, in this case, we have 6 possible outcomes, so how do we account for them all? We can nest or embed several if statements within each other so that Excel makes a progressive evaluation of each statement. Or we could use the ifs function. Ifs works almost the same way as if, but without all the nesting. So let's try the ifs function here. So we need our first logical test. So that's going to start with the value that's in B13. We want to say if it's less than 1, like what's here, then we want to return this value. Our second logical test, again, we're looking at the same value here, B13. If the value in B13 is less than 11, then we want it to return this value. And we keep doing this all the way to the end. So up to 30 is represented here, but anything 31 and higher is considered a heat wave. So we represent that by saying if B13 is less than 31, we want it to say hot. And if it's greater than 30, then we want it to say heat wave. All right, so this looks good. London on Thursday is 22, which is considered warm. Let's run a test to make sure that it all works. So let's choose Wellington on Thursday. That's 9 and cold. Let's choose Tromsø. That's -3 and freezing. And let's go somewhere really warm. Let's take Mumbai on Monday. There's a heat wave. So this works really well. Now, I'm sure you guys thought of other ways to do this. You always do, and we always love it. Tell us all about it in the comments below or on our Slack channel. See you next time.
So there it is. Did you get the same results? Did you use the same approach? Or did you try something different? We'd like to know. Share your take on the challenge in the comments below or join us for more discussion in our Slack channel. Link in the description. Thanks for participating, and make sure to subscribe to this channel to get an alert when the next challenge is released. We'll see you then.